Record and a huge welcome to the stage to Lucy Spencer, who has become a key integral part of the Love Tutoring Festival over the two festivals we've had. I think she's taken to the stage, Lucy, what is it, 5 times, 4 times?
Yeah, I think so. 5, yeah.
5 times, yeah. So
sorry, guys.
No, yeah. This is certainly not the last you'll see of Lucy by any stretch. So if you haven't listened to Lucy before, she's a wonderful speaker with plenty of ideas. She's the founder of Education Boutique, which just around the time of the last festival was acquired by the eTeach group. So now there's a wonderful kind of synergy partnership going on there. And the title of today's keynote will be a vision for the future of education. So this is going to be a little bit of an open discussion, hopefully kind of generating some key ideas about where tutoring can fit into the mainstream education system. So Lucy is, as you can probably imagine, or as you may have heard already, a pretty visionary tutoring business leader, and really Education Boutique is the same. It lives through that philosophy, and Lucy's kind of the key part of Lucy's attendance at the last festival was this wonderful 24-hour tutor-thon, which is actually a phrase that Lucy has very kindly given me credit for. I think it may have been Lucy, but this 24-hour tutor-thon was a wonderful kind of concept, and Lucy also helped deliver one of the CPD accredited workshops last June as well. So a huge thank you to Nudge Education, who are the lead sponsors of this entire festival. They've been incredibly grateful. They've been incredibly generous in their support for the festival over the last few months. And of course to Tutorbird, whose promo video you just watched just there, who are wonderful tutor management software who help independent tutors streamline all of the wonderful things that make up a tutor's business. So thank you so much, Lucy. I will hand over to you now. You've got a little presentation to share, and yes. Lucy will take you through for the next hour or so.
Thank you so much, guys. So yeah, thank you so much, Ludo, and yeah, obviously to Nudge and everyone for organising this amazing event. If you didn't catch it yesterday, me and Diego from Nudge actually did a really interesting sort of school-led tutoring. I love talking with him, so do catch that on record as well. But today, what are we doing? You're all here at 10 a.m. and the most important thing is the next hour is not about me. The focus for this really is to get us all thinking and innovating, because one of the most important things that we recognize often as tutors who have left the classroom is that school conditions us to think in boxes, and that can really limit innovation. Because if we're looking for the next box to tick or the next objective to fill, what happens when we leave the education system and people stop giving us boxes and we're on our own? So today is really going to be very much about us as educators, as pedagogically aware teachers, tutors, whatever box you want to call yourself. Really, we're just people, aren't we? But we're really going to be trying to think of, I'd just love you to go away thinking, gosh, I've never really thought of that before. So that would be my only expectation really of this next hour. So what would be amazing is, I know what it's like at these events. Often we're doing other things in the background. We're sort of, emailing. I'm very much always sort of in a similar way. But even if you can't do that right now, because appreciate it's 10 a.m. on a Friday, maybe you might sort of consider just watching back this session at another time when you don't have any distractions and you really can just think, because that's the focus of this next hour, is to get us all thinking. Firstly, I'm going to think about, we're going to, I don't know, some of you might be familiar with that I do, we do, you do kind of technique in teaching, where, it's kind of very similar to sort of maths mastery and that tutoring sort of ethos that many of us probably use, in the sense that we might give a little bit of knowledge, we might then collaboratively discuss and sort of take that knowledge further, and then we think about what it means to us in our own way. But I mean, imagine if right now, because a lot of you will be expecting me to talk right now, right? What if I said I wasn't going to talk? And I said, you've come here to listen to me speak about thought leadership in education and a vision for education. But imagine if I said that our collaborative aim in the next hour was to go away having really considered what the future of education might look like, what might mean to us personally, might mean to children that we teach right now. In the chat, it would be amazing for you just to put right now, what would you suggest that we did? So imagine that I just sat here and I said, we're not going to do anything in this session unless we all agree on it. You know, we've got this collaborative aim. We want to think about the future of education, but what should we do? And for some of you, you might think, awkward silence. This doesn't usually happen very often. Oh my gosh, Helen, can you read my brain? You literally said awkward silence as I said it. That's creepy. But it kind of is a bit of an awkward silence, isn't it? And why? Because I'm not giving you a tick box. I'm not giving you something that says you are here and I think you should do this and you need to do it. So that would be the first thing. And straight away you're having to think and you're like, oh God, this is going to be awkward. She's going to sit here in silence until we give her something to do. God, maybe I better start thinking. So in the chat, I'm going to ask again, if you came here expecting to do some thinking about the future of education, what could we do? So we've got some people saying it's good to have the freedom to think. Julia wants chocolate. Julia, I like that. How is chocolate going to help us? Yeah, I love that, Ludo. I'll just mute myself and just let the chat go. That would be pretty epic. But I feel like maybe some people might be like, that's a little bit of a cop out. So we've got I like this, unrestrained dreaming of the world of education. But what would that look like in this next hour? A drawing board, love this. Okay, so we could go breakout rooms, we could discuss, look at the metaverse, talk about children following their passions. Love all these ideas in the chat. Less pressure, more emphasis on the whole child and growth. There's a lot of general statements here though, guys. I'm not going to let you get away with making real generalized statements, because that's great. But how's that going to get us to the future of education? And that is something, I sat in a meeting the other day and I made a really generalized statement and the guy I was talking to ate me alive for it. So these generalized statements, and I think this thought leadership, it's quite misunderstood really, isn't it? Because that sounds a bit airy fairy and it sounds a bit like, oh, we just live in the clouds and the stars. And yeah, okay, you know, we can joke a bit about that, can't we? That it's all about future thinking and like robots are going to take over the world, but that's not helpful. It's not helpful at all, is it? Because things like when we say robots are going to take over teachers, that just causes anxiety about the future of education. That just causes people to go, no, I don't want to be a part of that future. Thank you very much. I'm switching off. So now we're getting some more interesting ones in the chat. I like this. So we've got rethinking the jobs of the future. So Victoria, tell me more about that. What can we do in this next hour that would involve rethinking jobs in the future? Don't teach any facts, just skills. Tell me more about that, Helen. What can you give me an example that works for you in your setting? Ask the children what they want, a little bit like what I'm doing now, maybe. Right? I'm like, here, right? Okay, we've got a collective aim right now that we've got this objective. Who gave us this objective? Maybe Julia gave me this objective because she told me that's what she wanted me to think about. So somewhere, somehow, we've got an objective. And we have to come up with how we're going to solve it, how we're going to do something purposeful in this hour. Don't worry, I have got a session planned, but I just wanted to actually start this off. And now just ask you, and look, we've already got some really good, I can see that, can you see in the chat, the answers are getting longer already. Okay, and that's because everyone's going, no, she's really not going to just shut up and move on, is she? She's really just going to keep going and waiting until we give her some things. Some people are saying they can't type fast enough. And that's another thing, isn't it? We've got to give people time. And that's why I suggested at the beginning that you might want to come back to this session and just like think about it some more. Think about, you know, what this means to you. So I'm just going to read out a couple of others for the benefit of people who are watching this on record. What did those teachers that inspired us specifically do to inspire us? Thinking about that, Odette, I love that. How did they shape us to become us? How can that be used to elevate our students? I love that. Great questions. And these questions are amazing. And yeah, we could go and discuss these, couldn't we? We could go into breakout rooms, we could discuss. But to be honest with you, I love breakout rooms for certain things, but I want this to be all of us today. I don't want to send you into breakout rooms. I want it to be collaborative discussion in the chat, and just making sure that we're really thinking about this. So if it's okay, I'd like you to just reflect on what happened there straight away. Now, I know what I saw. I saw people going, what? She's not got anything planned? Like, is that for real? And then straight away, there was a bit of a pause. And then we had people coming out and going, you know, some really great answers. And I'm going to save this chat and I'm going to create a little bit of almost like a reverse lesson plan of what happened in this session to try and sort of go, well, this is what the timeline was. This is what the results and not the results, but the sort of the outcomes were. So yeah, Julia, Myro. So these kind of things, it's always about, yeah, we've just had Melanie reflecting on what you're really doing here as a tutor. I mean, like, dude, I could stop this right now. If that's what this little quick beginning thing has helped you to do, that is my aim. We all need to be reflecting on what we do as tutors all the time, but not within our own little zone of comfort, because comfort is safe. But comfort is not going to change any of the problems that we have in education, is it? Comfort is pretty lazy, actually. And we all have this little lazy part of our brain that just goes to comfort and goes to what we know, what we've done before that sort of worked. But we don't, because we've been schooled in this way that's very limiting and very tick box, tick box, tick box. We'll often just live within our own little tick boxes. And if I could challenge anyone who's watching this to go away and do something after this, I always have this thing of do one thing. It would just be that every time you teach, you just like challenge yourself. And it's really easy to challenge yourself because you just ask yourself the question of why. Like, why am I doing that? How is that going to help? And it's sort of almost like a statement that you can take yourself through. Why am I deciding to do it like that? And quite often the answer will be because I've always done it, or that's what my teachers did, or that's what I've experienced. And unfortunately, education is not about you. Sorry if anyone thinks it is, but it's not. And if you think it's about you, you need to do a little bit of, as Melanie said, guys, what is actually happening? People are saying things as I'm just about to say them in the chat. It's kind of strange. I love that we're also connected here. It's self-analysis, you know, you've got to self-analyze and recognize that you are your biggest limitation on your students. Like, you really are. So that's the kind of little me do section at the beginning of this session. What I decided to do, because I had a few internet problems yesterday, which is so awkward being an online tutor. I don't know what's happening. I think I'm moving house at the moment, and I think it might be potentially because, I don't know, I'm not really sure, but I'm just going to share my screen. I've actually done it onto just a little like PDF, so it's not going to look so snazzy, but who cares, it's fine. Again, it's not about me. It's about us all doing this. So this is a vision for education, the future of education. So first of all, in this little part, this is where we're going to collaboratively do some thinking together. In the chat, if it's okay, I'd just like you to complete this sentence. You don't have to write it all out perfectly, but thinking about the future of education makes me feel what, because what? So in the chat, could you just, for you, I don't care about you using buzzwords. And in fact, I'd actively encourage you not to use buzzwords, because that's what a lot of people do, isn't it? So thinking about the future of education, Andrea, I love that, makes me feel inspired because I care. Oh, love that. So no, it's fine. Anyone who's watching this, if you need to go, as I say, just, it's always going to be there on recording. So please feel free just to watch it again. Victoria, I love how honest that is. Makes me feel scared because I may not have the tech skills. Okay. Excited because I want to contribute. Love that. Concerned because of the overload and overreach. That's interesting. Tell me a bit more about that, Helen. What do you mean by like the overreach? Do you mean you personally? I love this. So it makes you feel bamboozled because post-pandemic is a new world. Carol, that's, yeah, absolutely. Rachel, excited because it's changing. I love that. Sarah's looking forward to the metaverse. You know, a bit, you know, she's like, you're excited because of the metaverse classrooms and tech. We have been bamboozled for years, haven't we? Excited because there's a wealth of opportunities to support children's learning that are currently undiscovered. What opportunities do you think there are, Joanne? Oh, excited because we're just waking up. Waking up from what, Julia? I love this. And as you're listening, do you hear things that you also thought about writing? You know, some of you chose to write excited, but actually, when you think about it, there might be things that make you feel a little bit bamboozled or a little bit of, I know that I know, obviously I always talk about the future of education. I always feel quite frustrated as well. I usually say, think about the future of education makes me feel frustrated because I know it's going to take longer than it should. Because to me, in my brain, it's quite quick what needs to happen. But there's so many layers that need to, you know, sort of be looked at here, aren't there? Okay, fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing those. We've got a few other people who've come back on their answers. Oh yeah, I love this. Yeah, working as a united front, we're waking up, we're getting rid of league tables. Yes, I love that. Tutoring needs and deserves re-advertising. Andrea, I love that. And I'm really intrigued as to know why you think it needs re-advertising. Let me know in the chat, even if we've moved on to something else. That's so interesting. Helen, you said because of mental health, pressure on teachers. It's like a pressure cooker, isn't it? At the moment, I think of education. Something is going to combust, and I'm not a scientist, but it's like a bang, basically. You know, we are in a crisis, and there's many reasons for that crisis, but it's very, very true. Opening up and removing barriers, Kaylee, yeah, I love that. And how does that make you feel? So what does that make you feel about all this, the opportunity of opening up and removing barriers? And yeah, wanting a new doorway, a more blended approach to learning. There's so many things here. These are amazing. Interesting. So some amazing like things in the chat, guys. Andrew, you think it needs re-promoting to change the image. Interesting. Now, I would disagree with that slightly, because I think image is very egocentric. And I think at the end of the day, if we go out there and we do the best for the children possible, we don't need an image. The image will come. And I think that there's so many, and it's very difficult to train our brain to get out of this way of thinking, but it really is not about us. It really is just about the service that we're doing and providing for the children, and the way we're making them think, and most importantly, the way we're making them feel. Because when you link feeling to learning, that's when the magic happens. Fantastic. So, okay, guys, the next thing that I would really like to think about is limitations and possibilities. Now, I spoke at the beginning about the fact that when we think about innovation, sometimes we don't naturally innovate in our everyday life because we're so used to living within very tight, restrained boxes of expectation that we've been conditioned to expect in our life. I was speaking to Diego yesterday, actually, and he said, "Oh, I'm not a very good CEO." And I did challenge him on that. And I said, "Well, why are you trying, like, Diego, like what? I thought, why are you trying to live into a box, ticked box, that what is a CEO to you? Why, be your own, innovate your own role in that sort of title that you get given." So teacher, tutor, although they're names that we give ourselves, they probably have limitations, don't they? Because then we act like a tutor or we act like a teacher. And so technically we're just humans at the end of the day, just like the kids that we teach are humans. And sometimes those children might act like a label that they've been given. And we need to be the ones that are able to help them see that they're not that label and that they're actually just a human and they can do whatever they want. And they can change their behavior if it's a behavior thing that they found themselves being labeled as, or there's so many different limitations that we can sort of access and think about. So by spotting the limitations, it then lets us innovate the possibilities. So if you're sitting here thinking, gosh, Lucy, this all sounds quite sort of grandiose, if you like, how do I actually do this in my everyday life? And again, I'm quite a big fan of making things simple. Just spot the limitations and asking yourself the questions of why. Why do I do that? What are the limitations of doing that? Are there any negative things that can come? What am I doing this? Am I bringing any limitations to the children's learning? Am I limiting myself as a tutor by doing this? And often the answer is yes. So then we can spot the possibilities and the opportunities. So we're going to look at a statement. So we're going to talk about two things. We're going to do a content, sort of curriculum based one, and we're going to do a people based one. And what I'd love us to do in the chat is, learning is a series of finite journeys. Let me just explain that. And then in the chat, I'd like you to tell me what you think the limitations are of where we are currently with the content of our curriculum and our education and everything. So one of the issues that I always talk about is that learning it should be an infinite journey. It should go on forever. It has no end point, because every day we learn things. I go to the business hub at QT Business Hub on Fridays. I learn things. I listen to my sales team speaking to schools on the phone. I learn things. So learning has never got an end. But one of the problems I see at the moment is that learning is a constant little race to the next beginning. So I always imagine it as like lots of little like 100-meter sprints. You're doing your SATs and there's an end. Then you're maybe doing your GCSEs. Then you're doing this. Then you're doing this. Or even in a lesson, there's a target. And it's a demand that's placed upon the child. And when we think about mental health and my role as a sort of PDA autism sort of advocate, if you like, demands placed on an individual where they don't feel that they have any control makes bad things happen. And so all these curriculum targets, school targets, everything, what do you think the limitations are? Sarah, I love that. When you say well done, that's enough, reaching for targets. Yeah, exactly. What is well done? Well done. What is that? Actually, when we're speaking to children, we should be talking about how they feel, how they act, how they engage with things, the thinking that they do. We shouldn't say things like, well done, well, I mean, you can, obviously, it's all about your personality coming through. I would never want to tell someone what they should say or what they shouldn't, but it's something that's so ingrained inside of us that it's actually very difficult to sort of turn that camera on yourself and go, oh gosh, yeah, I do that. And I know I do things like that all the time. And I know that I'm just super passionate about, you know, changing the education, but sometimes I look back on the way that I present things and I'm like, yeah, that was not quite what people needed to hear at that one time. So I'm just loving some of these contributions in the chat. I think they're so, so valuable. We're obsessed with compliance. It's embedded. The limit is that all children are assessed by the same criteria. If they don't meet the expected expectations, they feel like they can't. Good. We're all conditioned. Good girl, good boy is so ingrained. I mean, yeah, I'm not even, that's a conversation. We could do an hour on just that, couldn't we? The last thing we want in our working teams is compliance. Oh my gosh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, sometimes everyone I've just obviously gone into an office environment, and when I have new starters on my team, people are like, good luck, you know, because I don't give them anything in terms of this is your job. You need to do it like this. I want you to talk like this. I'm like, what do you think you should say? They're like, I don't know. It's my first day. I'm like, okay, so what do you need? You know, what do you think you need to do? Go listen to some people who are making the calls. And then I want you to come up with what you're going to say, you know, what you're going to do to make it seem natural to you. And they're a bit like, oh, okay. And I think on the first day, they probably go home thinking, my goodness me, what have I just done? But actually, after a week, they're like, I've got ownership of my job, you know? And I think that's kind of interesting. So limitations, we're seeing those limitations. We're talking about the control is taken back by a student. Yes, Rachel, often negatively. It might be an eating disorder, mental health issues. So all these finite journeys that we're demanding our students and our people, humans, to focus on and to move through all the time, that control will be taken back somewhere else. And that might be with controlling behavior. It might be a lack of, you know, decline in mental health. And we have got to understand that it is as simple as that. And I know it probably seems a little bit oversimplistic to say that, but we have got to keep things simple, because as we move through into the future, where there will be a plethora of tech and opportunities for innovation and this, we just actually have to be really, really simple with our messaging, because then that cuts through all the noise and all the craziness that's going on around us. Kaylee, you feel exams are so pointless. It's the only time they have to sit in silence, remember things. I mean, yeah, let's change assessments to encompass research, questions, and communicative skills. I love that. So you're thinking about the possibilities now already. So I'd like to invite everyone, just like Kaylee's just done there, is now with that limitation that you've just looked, so you can always scroll back. If you, like me, I always forget what I've written in these things. Look at the limitation that you just identified, or listen to what other people have said, or see what other people have said about limitations they see right now with this finite, lots and lots of little mini sort of races, if you like, and demands placed on someone that they don't really have any control of. You know, they don't. You know, you're a child, you go to school. That's it. You know, what are the possibilities? What could we do? What could society do? What do you think would help to a first step? It doesn't have to be like to solve the whole issue, because that's a bit big for a Friday morning. But what do you think? Julia's like this. Julia, what do you mean this? Talking? Discussing? Are people in charge willing to make the changes though? Helen, that's a really great question. But why are the people in charge the people in charge? You know, should they be in charge? Now, I know what I think. Some of you may know what I think as well, because I do rant about it sometimes on LinkedIn. But do they have the right to be in charge? Do we make tick boxes for them and turn it back on them as tick boxes, so you don't deserve to be in a position of responsibility? I have written the tick boxes, now I'm considering it. You know, it's like playing them at their own game, isn't it? It's like, if you're going to Ofsted, you know, for example, yeah, absolutely. Someone's just private messaged me. Ofsted, you know, the possibilities that is the root of all evil in education at the moment, because schools are scared. They are scared about not ticking the boxes for Ofsted, so they impose more tick boxes on the children, which imposes more tick boxes on the parents, which imposes more tick boxes on it's just a never-ending cycle. So a possibility is that as the education industry, we turn it back on the DfE, the government, Ofsted, and we say, okay, you're giving us all these tick boxes. These are the tick boxes that we're expecting from you. And I don't see anyone doing that. So I wonder in the chat if you have any thoughts about what do you see as important? Lucy's new job, always Lucy's job, annoy politicians, definitely. So in the chat, you don't have to answer this now, you might think about it, let it sort of, go around your brain. What would you put as a tick box for the people in charge, seeing as they love putting tick boxes on everybody else? It's kind of interesting. I don't know, I think about that quite a lot. So let's move on to the second one, because I am conscious of time. So the second thing that I want us to think about, we've thought about the content of the current, and obviously just in case we have anyone from different countries watching on record, watching live as well, you can speak about this for your own country as well. But I was actually going to talk about this a little bit later, but maybe it's appropriate to talk about it now. In the summer that's just gone, I went on this conference, and it was on a boat in France. And as we got onto the boat, we had to think about the world as if we were 10 years into the future. And the whole conference was done and delivered as if we were 10 years into the future. It was crazy, mind-blowing, mind-boggling. My little brain was very in its happy little place. But why am I talking about that? I've actually just lost my train of thought, but never mind. I know why. So we're talking about the reason that when we're thinking about the future, one of the things that came up on this boat was, well, what if there wasn't curriculums for every country? Why is there curriculums for every country? What happens? And one of the presentations I did was about, if we had an option, we're citizens of a place, of a resident of the UK or America or wherever. Imagine if there was a global residency. Like, imagine you paid your taxes to not a country, but a global sort of fund, if you like. Well, and then you'd have the freedom to move around between country to country, and that's all great. I mean, that would be my dream. What curriculum would you use then? That's kind of interesting, isn't it? Because I don't think that there is a curriculum that would really serve the purpose of, kind of actually allowing every little individual to grow, to explore, to innovate, to me, that is interesting. And I do believe that something like that will change, maybe not in 10 years, to be honest with you. It's probably going to take a lot longer than that, but probably in our lifetimes, it will. So if there's not relevance in the curriculum that we use in UK or in England, the curriculum that they use in America, the curriculum that you use in any country, if it's not relevant to every child in the world, then that's a bit of a limitation, isn't it? I don't know. And the possibility would be that we get rid of that, maybe. So then to think about ourselves. Sorry, that was a bit of a digression. That wasn't really on the plan, but educators are burnt out and leaving the classroom. So let's think about people. That's a problem that we have right now. I've used the word educator. I don't like using the word teacher tutor, because to me that makes people think of a box straight away. So I'm just going to use, really I could just put humans, but that we're talking specifically about people in education jobs right now. Facilitators definitely, and Kaylee, I think that links into what the possibilities are, and I'm really excited to talk about that with you guys as well. What are the limitations that we place upon ourselves as educators right now? In the chat. So not top-down learning, Jeremy, I totally agree. I just think there's so much egocentric education going on. you know, you speak to teachers and they're just like, well, I did this. And to be totally honest, even if you're someone that you look back at what you're saying and you're like, yeah, the I facilitator showed it exactly. Sorry, but it's not about you, you know? And if you think it is, unfortunately, you're still, you even more so, your students' biggest limitation if you are an I facilitator. And also, if you are an I facilitator, you know those people that talk about robots taking over the world and doing teaching jobs and stuff, they're kind of right. Because if you are an I facilitator and it's all about you delivering a PowerPoint presentation of content to your students, I mean, I'm going to be able to replace you with a robot in a couple of years, you know? They're going to have a little cool avatar in the metaverse. We'll get AI to literally like feed out the information, churn it in, get the information, spew it out to you. They could do your job really easily. But what they can't do is the human aspect, the EQ skills, like the emotional intelligence that we have, the touch on a shoulder when the child does something right, the human communication. But I think that is a big limitation, isn't it, of educators right now. Unfortunately, and I'm not saying that anyone in this room is like thinks like this, but you know, if you eat, do you know what? To be honest with you, I look back on when I was in the classroom and I definitely thought that I was the most important. Like I've changed my thoughts. Like I really did think it was all about me and I had to do training and I had to do this and I had to do that. But I do think training is important, but it's not so your skills or your knowledge increases necessarily, which is again why I don't really do, why I don't really kind of think, you know, sort of qualifications. If it was up to me, QTS would not be a thing. You know, it's another tick box. So I tick these boxes and then I can educate children. Are you mad? Like, what are you talking about? Anyone can educate someone because education is about a transfer of emotion, of passion for a subject. So it seems crazy to me that we put so much, you know, Jeremy, I totally agree with you. That top-down model is just, it's got no place in the future of education. So let's just have a little look at what you guys are saying in terms of limitations. We've got needs to split matters, got good skills, but the function of, yeah. So we're talking about like the kind of the different subjects, the different, you know, absolutely. Tutors are asked to help students pass exams. Victoria, that's a huge limitation, isn't it? For tutors, for us, a huge limitation of people's, I guess, understanding of what a tutor is unfortunately, we are the gap fillers, aren't we, at the moment? Because of this very, very, and it's the reason that we thought about the curriculum side of things first, is because for me, it all comes down to the curriculum, you know? But yeah, that's one of the big, and I think it was, I can't remember who it was who said about there needs to be a remarketing of tutoring. Unfortunately, I think until the actual fundamentals of education change, there's almost no point. It's just a wasted energy and effort. You know, we just need to do our thing, focus on how we make the children think and feel, and that's going to get the initial change. And we've already seen it, you know, with the school-led tutoring, NTP, the government putting money into tutoring. We've got huge academies that are tutoring, as you know, they're having their sort of LSAs trained as tutors, and then they're having these full-time in school tutors. Now, it's not many schools that are doing that, but it's started, and that's positive. So as we're thinking about those educators, loads of people saying, mind the gap, like, you know, kind of, yeah, absolutely. It's nothing personal. It's just the way it is. I love that. We just want to think about what are the possibilities for us as educators, not just us, not just teachers, not just tutors, anybody. What are the possibilities for the people who educate? And I am just going to let everyone have a little bit of time to kind of pop that in the chat. I know it's not super quick to actually type these kind of pretty big answers. And if anyone wants to, you know, please feel free to, if anything that we've sort of done today has made you think of something, you know, always reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm always like, voice notes are best. You can send voice notes on LinkedIn. It's the reason I love it. But definitely send me a voice note with what you think about if there's something that you don't want to bother writing in the chat, because I know I'm the same sometimes. That's why I use Zoom on my phone. Then I can quickly like voice note it in. Right, so you were getting some, yeah, and I think that's a really interesting thing. Matt, I'm just going to try and see your comment. Someone's just said, yeah, absolutely. So some classrooms using like YouTube as their music instructor already, and that goes back to that educator thing, doesn't it? We need to see that value, and that's something that I think, you know, from meeting Matt only on Monday, my goodness, I would much rather students be integrated, like engaging with virtually a human like yourself rather than just playing a video, you know? And that is what it comes down to a little bit, isn't it? So infinite possibilities, Helen says, we can go in so many directions if we have the freedom to do so. Now, how do we get the freedom? Not just to Helen, anyone can answer this. How do we get the freedom? How do you think we can get the freedom to feel that we can go in all of these different ways, you know? Sorry, I just muted someone. Just hear a little bit of sound there, sorry. We do have the freedom, don't we? One voice, Shola, I love that. And I'm such a massive, massive advocate for the fact that, like, even me, it's not about what I think, what I do, what I say. Again, I said this yesterday at the beginning of the session, but I did actually feel quite nervous yesterday before doing these sessions, because my aim for the session is not to tell you what I think, but to like change the sort of the way that you think about your role at the moment. And with that change, so much else can change, so much else can really, like, you know, the possibilities are endless. And I think that's really exciting. So we're leading by example. Yep. And like, you know, that brings up the thing of what is leadership? You know, leadership is not about one person at the top doing their thing. It's about someone who can jump in, can change someone's thought process, can, you know, not change it because it's wrong, but can give them the confidence to innovate and believe in themselves and not live within those little boxes and everything. How can we tell our children that they can be or do anything if we don't believe it ourselves? Now, I do agree. I do agree, but also we don't need to tell them anything. We just need to make them feel things, because telling them is not going to do anything. So how would you be able to make them feel it? You know, it's the way you talk to them. It's the way you share things with them. It's the way you sort of, they hear you talking about them to other people, you know, model it. Yeah, show that. Absolutely. And I think probably for me, a really important thing is that learning has to come with feeling. Because if I sit here and tell you stuff, I hate that word, tell. If I sit here and tell you stuff and say, oh, guys, I think this, so you will need to listen to what I'm saying and do it, you know, you're not going to feel anything. In fact, actually, you probably feel like, who the hell are you? You know, like, I don't have to do anything. So I think that, and I hope that maybe doing like a session like this just makes you just reflect on your own practice, or begin to, and listen to what everyone else is saying, because I love this whole, in the chat, it's so rich with like what other people think. And obviously we all have different experiences, different lives, different cultures, different everything. And so it's really important that we learn from each other. And And I hope that I've been able to be like a bit of a facilitator to that today. But then maybe you can do a similar thing in your role with all the students that you work with, and you stop seeing yourself as the teacher, tutor box. And then you can actually inspire them to think, oh yeah, you know, I don't want to, I'm not saying we're going to make everyone like rebel against school, because that's not also a positive thing either, is it? And actually, common to contrary belief, I don't think that school is a bad thing. I think a community of people learning is a wonderful thing. But a community of people learning something that some guy who has somehow got into a steering committee that's got a few other teachers that were probably chosen by someone who was white British in London, who's then created a curriculum that's quite bland. It's not what we need, is it? Especially not for the future. So last thing is we're going to get creative. So, and I'm very conscious that we only have 12 minutes left. So we're going to do this in a little bit of a speeded up version. Now, yesterday, my internet was a little bit bad. So I was a little bit nervous about playing a video. But basically, what I'd actually like everyone to do, which again, you don't have to do, and you can turn off your video if you want this, if you want for this bit. I want you to close your eyes, and I want you to, 10:56. Okay, that's fine. Thank you, Ludo. Close your eyes, and we are going to go and transport ourselves to 2032, 10 years into the future. And what we're going to think, we're going to have a little bit of I'm a bit of an English teacher. I quite like all this kind of creative stuff. So close your eyes, and I want you to imagine the time, the hours, the months, the years ticking past. And some of you may do this with your students when you just want them to like have a little moment of calm. Imagine the years, imagine 2022. What color is it? And then imagine that 2 at the end flicking round to a 3. And then a 4. And then it's going to speed up a little bit, and it's going to go to a 5, to a 6, to a 7, 2028, 2029, 30. And as we get to 31, you can open your eyes again. And then we're in 2032. So I don't want you to think about anything apart from the opportunity that you have right now. Because we're in 2032, and basically anything could be possible then. So I want you to imagine that you wake up in the morning, you're a tutor, you're doing your job, you're educating students, but you've got to mark your work. And I say got to, because we do that, don't we, for our students? It's kind of cool to see their work and see what they've done and what they've produced. But can you, in the chat, almost imagine what that could be like for us right now? Because we're in 2032, like anything is possible. So can you tell me, like, and you can do it privately in the chat, or you can do it to everybody, I don't really mind, but you might take this that you're in a classroom with a group. You might take this that you're still working one-to-one. That's up to you. So some people have said in the chat already, virtual reality marking. So give me this whole thing. What would it look like? Try and imagine you're sitting down. Are you sitting? Maybe you're flying. I don't know. Anything can happen. I'm imagining a little robo dog. I'm imagining, like, you know, whatever you want to do, hoverboards, whatever, all those stereotypical future things if you want to. But someone said, oh, not jogging. But how would you mark your work? And how would it what are your limitations at the moment? And how would where we are right now allow you to be more efficient, to be less stressed doing that task that some of us kind of get a bit stressed out about. So lots of people are saying technology is in the forefront. I'd love a robot to mark the work, automated, you know, like almost like a Google review. So it goes onto the student's profile and then it's like on them, blockchain technology. It's never get, I love this. Now, I'm very aware that I have 3 minutes and I really do want to finish on time. So please keep them coming in the chat because I know some people might be typing longer things. Marking is a waste of time, less done in real time with the students. So Victoria, how would you mark work in 2032, in your opinion? Doesn't have to be in the morning. What work would be set, you know? So I just want to think about one thing, because if I had started today and I'd said, okay, guys, in 10 years, you might have, technology might have taken over. A lot of you would have maybe thought, oh gosh, no, I don't want to listen to this. I don't want to, you know, I'm not ready to hear this. It seems overwhelming. It seems whatever. But right now, I'm getting a lot of technology aiding your life in the future. Is everyone else seeing that? And one of the things that I think is really amazing is when we think about the possibilities in a positive way, and it hasn't really been a demand. I mean, I know I've asked you questions and I've asked you to write in the chat, and some of you may have felt that that's a demand, you know, whatever. But look, we need to kind of, we're not in the kind of point where you can just think things and it put, you know, brings them up on my screen and things like that. That would be cool. I would love that. But do you see how now a lot of you are seeing, hopefully, ways that you wouldn't feel overwhelmed with technology being more involved in your life in the way in the future. And you're seeing, and for those of you that are very technological now, that's amazing. Where are you going to be in 10 years' time? You could be even further. And I think it's just about us. If I can leave you kind of with one thought really from today, if you ever feel overwhelmed thinking about the future of education, just do this one thing. Think about the limitations of where we are now. Maybe identify things that stress you out or cause you a bit of time wasted, in your opinion, and think about what is possible for the future. And then the possibilities often will stop your overwhelm, because it's all about feeling. And so that is kind of everything that I wanted to do in today's session. But I've absolutely loved the chat. The chats are just amazing. If you've, I hope you found it useful, listening to me ramble on about ideas of the future and things like that. But I just, I am really, really passionate about us moving education forward. But sometimes maybe unless you're all like one big group and a community doing it together. So yeah, thank you so much.
Thanks, guys. Thanks, Lucy, so much. Is there if there are any kind of final comments, then please do kind of put them in the chat. But that was hopefully the kind of conversation that allows you to go out into the world, to go out into your tutoring, and kind of have the confidence to put the first steps in place to do that. I think that's what Lucy was trying to encourage, is that, you know, it's not just the grand visionary statements, it's actually how can that change tomorrow or next week, or, you know, even next week, Lucy would probably say is too far away. And as you can see, Lucy and I are clearly, I promise we're not in the same room, but the sun is just absolutely bursting through for the two of us. Lucy looks pretty blinded. But that was a really wonderful session. And as Lucy said, the recording of that will be kind of massively useful as well for people to go back in and listen to little snippets of it, or to hear it for the first time. So I don't know if you guys saw, but the email we sent out last night, we've got all of the recordings of Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday and Thursday. So if you do have any questions about recordings, head to that email. If you didn't receive that email, it's probably in your spam folder. I can't believe there'd still be emails in people's spam folders by now. But Lucy, thank you so much for helping us see differently.
Thank you.
In just a few seconds time, we are going to be wrapping this session up and welcoming Gavin McCormack to the stage. There's just a short video that we would like to play about our courses, the first of which, sorry, not the first of which, the next of which is starting this coming Monday, the 31st, with live options, or you can watch it self-paced in your own time. So I'm just going to play a short video. And Julia's going to pop the links in the chat.
Welcome to Qualified Tutor. We are very proud of this course that we've put together because we know it works. The course will be delivered by me, Julia Silva. I'm a senior leader in a primary school. I'm a tutor and I'm a mother. I wrote this course with Adrian Conway. Adrian has 30 years of school experience, most recently a senior leader in a large school in Cumbria. We wrote this course as a transformational course, a course that will affect the way that you think. We've built it into a cohort model so that you'll be learning alongside other people, because we know that that will make it much richer and more effective for you, support your thinking and help you to learn from each other and gain the support that you need, and also to give to others and give them the support that they need. We are, after all tutors around here.
Or we're all change makers around here. Lucy, I think that would be the message that you would deliver after this. So thank you very much. We're going to wrap up this recording here, and we'll very shortly be moving on to Gavin McCormack.